guys, it's Tina and I am back with a review that has been highly requested since I did a haul video where I mentioned that I picked up these palettes here from Morphe. A lot of people have been asking me to do a review video on these palettes, so that's what we're gonna do. But as usual, let's jump into the swatches first and then we'll jump into the review. First up, let's go ahead and take a look at the most popular palette, which is the 35O palette, which contains mostly peachy and warm tone neutrals. At the very top we have 2 rows of lighter shades followed by 3 rows of deeper and medium tone shades. There are some cranberry shades, some deep dark browns, and more oranges. So at the very top we have the first color is just a light ivory shade. It's a matte. Then we have a shimmery peach tone shade that has light pigmentation. Then we have an icy peachy champagne followed by a yellow bronzy gold shade. Then we have a matte caramel tone shade with a deeper matte caramel shade next to it. These two are good blend-in shades, followed by a rich deep orange shade, which is probably one of the prettiest in the palette. So that's a look at the first row of the palette. In the second row we have another light ivory shade. This one is a little bit deeper than the other one and a little bit more yellow tone. Then we have a duochrome shade that's a pinky and peachy duochrome. And then next to that we have another shimmery shade. This one is more of a light yellow gold. Next to that we have another matte blend-in shade. It's just a matte beige shade. And next to that we have more of a orangey or yellowy toned orange shade, again great for warm looks. Then we have a deep orange toned brown. Most of these colors are orange tones, followed by a medium toned orange. It's more of a tangerine orange. It's lighter than the other orange in the other row. And there's a look at the second row of shades, and I'll pull back so you can see those first 2 rows swatched on my arm. Next we're moving on to the third row. We have a orangey toned brown shade. This is a beautiful blend-in shade, followed by more of a neutral tone brown shade for blending and deepening up the crease, followed by an espresso brown. This one is a deep, rich coffee brown. Then we have a orange brown shade. This is like a saddle brown. It's a orangey tone brown, great for warm looks. Then we have a bronzy or coppery shimmery shade, really beautiful again. Then we have an icy, very icy, shimmery, pale champagne shade with a peach undertone, followed by a deep orange or burnt orange shade. This one has great pigmentation again. And then this is the third row of shadows swatched on my arm. Now let's move on to the fourth row. We have a bronzy brown shade with some shimmer to it. And then we have one of those shimmery golden bronze shades. It's rich and highly pigmented. Then we have another neutral tone dark brown, followed by a more caramelly or coffee espresso brown shade. Also a deep one for deepening up the crease. Then we have more of a red tone bronze. So this has a little bit more warmth to it than the other shade. And then we have more of a coppery brown. It's a little bit more subdued than the other copper. Then we have another red tone brown. This one is more red tone than orange. And that is the fourth row of shadows, again swatched on my arm. Now let's move on to the final row. We have a deep brown with some glitter in it. This one is actually really pretty and very pigmented again, and the shimmer is beautiful. Then we have a caramel brown shade, another caramel brown. This is a little bit deeper than the others. Then we have a dark neutral brown with a little bit of a sheen to it. It's not quite all matte. Then we have another brown shade. A lot of brown shades for blending. And yet again another, this one is more of a gray tone brown shade, followed by a red tone coppery shade. This is very orange, very copper, very shimmery. And then the final shade is a bright orange copper shade, which is just really pigmented and beautiful. So here's a look at the final row of shades. That's gonna wrap up our 35O swatches. Now let's move on to the 35T palette, which are all cool tone, purpley tone neutral shades. At the top we have lighter tones, and then the bottom 3 rows are deeper, darker, again purpley and very cool tone neutral. So if you're into cool tones and you're not into the warm tones of 35O, 35T is one to check out. It's very cool tone, very purple, as you can see. Moving on with the swatches, we're going to start with the first row, which has a cool tone, purple tone, brown shade starting right out the gate. Then we have a shimmery taupe shade. It's a really beautiful shade. Actually, I really like that one. And then next to that, we have more of a satiny taupe shade. This one took some building up, as you can see. It's not as shimmery as the second shade. Then we have more of a cool tone or bronzy tone shade with some taupe undertones. It's like a silvery purple bronze, if that makes sense. Then the other shade is more of a red tone taupe. Then we have a true bronze shade next to that. And then we have more of a coppery bronze shade next to that. And that's the first row of shadows. All of these actually applied pretty well. Next row we have a matte caramel brown shade with a little bit of a gray undertone. Then we have next to that another caramelly tone. They're a little bit of like a gray undertone to these shades. Then we have a shimmery champagne followed by another shimmery champagne. These look very similar. One's a touch lighter. Then we have more of a yellowy gold shade or a yellowy bronze. Then we have a caramel shimmer brown. It's more of a satin than a matte. Then next to that we have more of a khaki bronze shade. So it has a little bit of a green flash to it, or an antique gold shade. And that's the second row of shadows. Pulling back so you can see the 2 rows of shadows swatched on my arm. Again, we have more of a purpley tone row, and then the second row is more of a yellowy caramelly row. Then the third row we have a color that I actually picked up the palette for. It's this duochrome red tone brown with golden shift, followed by a shimmery light lavender purple. Then we have more of a satin tone purple. Then the fourth shade is more of a purple toned nude shade. Then we just have a sandy beige shade, followed by more of a deep cranberry brown shade with silver glitter to it, and a very similar shade, just like a tone or 2 off. And that is the third row of shades. Moving on to the fourth row, we have a peachy tone, kind of pinky toned bronze shade, followed by a very yellow gold bronze shade. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. Then we have a deeper medium tone bronze, followed by a rich dark tone bronze. So I think these are just pinky, different shifts of bronze. Then we have more of a sandy bronze shade, followed by a burnt or vintage gold khaki bronze, and more of a deep purpley tone bronze shade. So that is the fourth row of shades. So I'm going to pull back so you can see both the third and fourth row of colors swatched on my arm. Now to finish up the palette, we have a gray tone deep brown shade, followed by a cranberry or deep matte plum shade. Next we have a deep brown or caramelly toned brown. Next to that we have another deep purple brown shade, or more of a dusty purple shade or a subdued matte purple. And the other shade is another deep bronze shade with golden shimmer. Then we have a matte deep espresso brown shade, and the last shade up is more of a taupey or silver toned bronze. It's like a deep taupe shade. It's actually very pretty, and that is the final row of shades swatched on my arm. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the colorful palette which I got, which is the 35S palette. And in this palette we have a lot of colorful shades, but there are more shades of purples and pinks and blues and greens versus yellows and oranges. So if you're interested in a colorful palette with these shades, this is one that you can take a look at. We're going to start out with the first row of swatches. And in the first row we have a shimmery
peachy pinky gold shade, which is really actually beautiful, reminds me of MAC Expensive Pink. Then we have a taupey brown shade, followed by a matte yellow, which doesn't really show up very well. It's actually a very terrible shade. Then we have a very icy pale green shade with good pigmentation. Then we have a purpley pink, like a medium tone purple pink, followed by an icy pink with a peach flash. And then the last color is a beige shade with glitter. So that is the first row of colors in this palette. In the second row we have a reddish coppery shimmery shade, followed by a matte seafoam teal shade. Then we have a frosty, very shimmery pale green again, and a satin type of lavender shade, followed by a burnt matte eggplant and a bright yellow orange gold. Then we have a brown shade with multi-dimensional shimmer. So now you'll take a look at the second row of shadows. In the third row we have a deep pine green shade that's matte in finish, followed by a matte purple brown shade. It's a purple tone brown. And then we have a matte vivid bright purple. Then we have another purple shade here, but it's a shimmery kind of dusty purple, followed by a matte white. Then we have a icy silver shade, light silver, and a bright blue, sea blue shade. So that's a look at the third row. Moving on to the fourth row, we have a very light satin baby blue shade with good pigmentation and a very light frosty peachy pink shade that's very interesting. And then we have a dusty subdued purple, followed by a deep slate silver and a matte deep blue shade with shimmer, followed by a medium tone silver shade and a matte pink. So that's a look at the third and fourth row in the palette. Moving on to the final row, we have a bright magenta matte pink shade with good pigmentation, followed by a matte navy blue. There are 3 blacks in this palette, but I'm saving them for last, so I'm skipping over that. Then we have another deep blue shade. It's a ocean blue shade. And then we have a deep matte cranberry purpley pink shade, followed by the 3 matte shades. So there are 3 matte shades in the final row, 3 matte black shades, and I don't know why they did that. They all look exactly the same. So you have 3 matte shades and 4 colorful shades in this final row.
Alright guys, so now that we've gotten through the swatches, which was quite a lot of eyeshadows to swatch and go through, let's go ahead and move on to the review. So the first thing I like to talk about as usual is the price, and the price for these palettes kind of vary. These are the 35 pan eyeshadow palettes, so these are the only ones that I'm going to mention specifically. The price I've seen ranges from $19.99 to $24.99, depending on which palette you get, whether it's on sale, whether it's just released, brand new. It's typically from $19.99 to $24.99. Right now on the website, they are being sold for $22.99. So either way, any way you look at it, even if it's at the higher end of the spectrum at $24.99, you're still spending less than $1 each for the eyeshadows, since there are 35 eyeshadows included in each of these palettes. Now, each of the eyeshadows are 0.056 ounces, so that's a full-size small eyeshadow on the market. So think about the MAC small eyeshadows, the Urban Decay small eyeshadows. That's the size of each eyeshadow in the palette. So you're getting 35 single eyeshadows for the price of $19.99 to $24.99. It's less than $1 each. There is no question that these palettes are among the cheapest online. They're the cheapest that you can get on the market. They're compared more in line with BH Cosmetics and those, remember those 24 eyeshadow pans that you could get, or those 120 color palettes that were all the rage on eBay? They're kind of the same thing, and these palettes are priced accordingly. You get what you pay for. They are a cheaper brand, they have cheaper quality products, and they are manufactured in a cheaper way. So the price reflects kind of what you get as far as quality goes. And we'll get into that more as we speak about the performance and how these eyeshadows work, but you kind of pay for what you get. As far as the packaging, these come in very thin black plastic packaging. It's the typical large size palette packaging that you can see on the market. It has the Morphe Brushes logo on the front, and on the back there's nothing. You have a little sticker that will tell you the name of the palette, so you'll see 35O or 35T or 35S. And then it has a little tab fit closure, which is actually nice. I like that it's not magnetized, but it just has a little tab fit that you open. The plastic is a cheaper feeling plastic. It's a very lightweight plastic, so it's a little bit more fragile than I would like, so be careful with these palettes. They can break easily if they're stuffed into luggage or something, so be careful when traveling with these. Inside, there's no mirror in the lid. It's just the 35 eyeshadows laid out in 5 rows of 7. And there is no rhyme or reason necessarily with the layout of the palettes. They're just kind of colors all around. Sometimes you have the lighter colors on one side and they gradiate to more dark colors, but there's no real rhyme or reason. You just get the pretty basic layout of an eyeshadow palette. It is pretty simple, pretty basic. Then you have a little clear insert to protect the eyeshadows that you can keep in there or toss out. I don't feel any way about it. The palettes don't have names for their eyeshadows. There are just no color names associated. You just have to, hey, pick and go, and that's just what you get. So the palettes are packaged in really basic, really simplistic kind of packaging. They're really cheaply made. I didn't expect a lot for the price, so I don't feel jaded or anything. It just is what it is. You paid for that kind of packaging, that's what you're gonna get. So let's go ahead and jump into the product and performance, because I know that's what you guys are here for. That's what you really want to hear, the real lowdown about these eyeshadows. And as I mentioned with the pricing and the packaging, it is what you pay for. The quality is what you pay for. They're cheaper quality products. They are manufactured cheaply. They're packaged cheaply. And you get them for a very inexpensive price. And in this case, you pay for what you get. And I know not all the time quality is reflected in price, but in this case, it kind of is. These palettes are manufactured in China, and I mentioned that before, and someone got all up in arms in the comments. I am not against products manufactured in China. The majority of our products are manufactured in China. What I was saying is that the regulations as far as ingredients, especially for cosmetic products, is very lax. They have loose regulations as far as ingredients and what they can include in the products and how they're actually manufactured. So the factory, how it's set up, whether it's safe for the workers that are there, whether the machinery is, properly cleaned and hygienic. All those things come into play because the regulations are loose. And that's what I mean about products manufactured in China, especially for cosmetics. When it comes to products that you're putting on your skin, on your face, that you're wearing for, hours at a time, that can technically get absorbed into your skin, I kind of I'm a little bit more wary, as opposed to, say, a phone or a electronic device that's manufactured in China. Those to me are not a big deal. But when it comes to things that I can ingest and things that are applied topically, I'm a little bit more wary. So that's what I mean about products that are manufactured in China. Now, the ingredients are listed on the box itself. They come in these basic boxes, but the ingredients are indicated on the box. The ingredients are also on the website itself, so you can check out the ingredients. They have talc, mica, mineral oil as the first 3 ingredients, so if you have any sensitivities to those, yes, keep that in mind. Now, the troubling part is where it has methyl paraben and propyl paraben. Now, parabens, you'll see a lot of cosmetics companies mention that their products are made without parabens. They don't include parabens because there has been not extensive research, but there has been research that shows that parabens are linked somewhat to cancer. And like I said, there is not extensive research, so it hasn't determined like long-term use and prolonged exposure to parabens, but it's just one of those ingredients that has a shady reputation. Research has shown that in breast cancer tumors and breast cancer tissue, there has been traces of parabens found. And while there's no direct link to parabens and cancer, it's just something that if I have to take that risk just to wear makeup, I'd rather not. And a lot of cosmetics companies have decided to start excluding parabens from their makeup ingredients. And a paraben is really just a preservative. It is used for longevity and shelf life of your products. So these products can last for years versus a shorter shelf life, or using another ingredient to preserve the shelf life. So like I said, cosmetics companies that are investing more into research and figuring out better ingredients and quality ingredients are excluding parabens. They're finding alternative ways and safer ways for us to just get a longer shelf life out of our products. So that's the first thing that sticks out to me, is that these are loaded with parabens. And the ingredients are pretty basic, low quality ingredients, and it reflects in how these products perform and how they work. Now, the matte shades are probably the worst performers. They apply decently. You do have to build them up quite a lot, and then they blend away easily. So you have to definitely use a primer, definitely use a base. Be careful with packing these on to maintain the color integrity. And with that being said, they still kind of fade throughout the day. So you'll get a good 4 or 5 hours worth of wear with it still looking fresh and good. Then it will kind of start fading away. The color won't be as intense as when you first applied it. And again, using a primer and a base is definitely going to help with that longevity. So that's what I found from the eyeshadows. They are a lower quality eyeshadow. They don't stick as well to the lids. They blend fine, actually. They blend fine. They just don't stick as well to the lids and give you the good payoff, and then they don't last as long on the lids. Now the shimmer shades and the frosty shades are the better performers. They perform a lot better. They glide nicely onto the lids, and that's probably owing to the mineral oil and the talc that's included in the ingredient list. That helps the product to kind of slip and slide around on the lids. A lot of companies will use silicone derivatives to accomplish the same thing. Here they're using the mineral oil, so it slips around on the lids well. And they apply pretty decently, and if you use like Fix Plus or a primer spray with them on a damp brush, they will apply even better. So I don't have a problem with the frost shades so much. They still do fade away over time, but they have a little bit more longevity in their wear time than the mattes. Overall, I think they work decently. I don't think they're high quality. I'm not expecting stellar performance from these eyeshadows, but if all you want is a cheap eyeshadow that's gonna do its job and wear decently for 5 hours, 4 to 6 hours, I would say, gauge it that way, and you're using a primer and using the necessary steps to make them work and you're really paying attention, then it is what it is. You're gonna get what you pay for. If you're just getting into makeup and you're trying out different colors and you want to get a feel for makeup before you invest in higher cost and higher quality products, then you can definitely use these to kind of get your feet wet before diving head first into makeup. As far as the parabens, that's the troubling part for me, and I feel like I couldn't recommend these wholeheartedly with a clean conscience. I feel like I have these, I've swatched them, I've used them to test them out, and honestly, I've used them, I've worn them, and then I can't wait to wash them off my face because I am just there like, get this off my face. And again, like I said, the research hasn't shown what the extensive use of these products and cumulative use. Parabens are all over the place, so it's not just in your cosmetics, it's other places. So cumulative use can affect you more, and I just feel like I don't want to take that risk. I'd rather not use these eyeshadows than use them and have a risk of breast cancer. With cancer being so prevalent these days, and it's such a horrific disease that has no real cure, it's not something I'm willing to risk, and it's not something I'm willing to wholeheartedly recommend to you. If you are gonna try these products out, approach them with caution. Use them to test them out, try them out, get a feel for eyeshadow looks. If you wear them, use them very, infrequently, and kind of completely cleanse them off your skin. Use primers and base products beneath them so they don't have as much of a chance to absorb into your skin. I'm just so wary about these. I don't hate them. I don't think they're terrible products. They work decently, and for what they cost, they are decent products, but it's not something that I'm comfortable recommending and pushing to you guys. And I'll be honest, I just picked these up because they were all the rage, and I wanted to get you guys swatches and to give you thoughts and reviews, and it's a sacrifice that I did. I know I'm being melodramatic right now, but it's a sacrifice that I was willing to make. But with that being said, I won't be continuing use of these. Just letting you guys know that that's my personal choice, and that's something that I've chosen to do. So if you are willing to try these out and take the chance, then they aren't bad products. They really aren't bad products. Some of the eyeshadows are really hit or miss, but you get 35 shades, and at least half of them work pretty decently, and they're nice colors. Some of them are really beautiful shades, and I'm just like, I can't bring myself to take the chance and use them for myself, and I wouldn't recommend them for you guys either, but that is a personal decision for you guys to make. So hopefully this video and the swatches were helpful, and it wasn't too much of a downer video. I just want to make you guys aware of the issues associated with ingredients in certain products, and I wouldn't be true to myself if I didn't bring that up and let you guys be aware of it. And again, these are products that I myself am not gonna continue use of. And I feel like we're friends here, and I wouldn't recommend these to my friends, and I wouldn't recommend these to my family. I wouldn't gift them to anybody, and I have to tell you guys the same thing that I would tell anybody else in my real life. I have to share that with my virtual family. So that's all I have for you guys. And I'm gonna leave you on that note. You know where to find these if you're interested. I will be doing a review on the brushes. I actually really like the E series. So they have some E brushes, the brushes with the E names. I think they're Elite. These brushes are actually pretty nice. The gunmetal brushes are not my favorite because they're lightweight and they kind of fall apart. They're not my go-to, but the E brushes, if you're interested, I know the holidays are coming up and people just want to grab some brushes. These are actually decent brushes, and they're synthetic. So those, I would say, yes, those are a go, but the eyeshadow skip and the gunmetal series skip. So that's all I have for you guys. I will leave links to my Instagram and Twitter where you can follow me along. And if you aren't already subscribed, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. And on to my next video, which will be very soon. I'll talk to you. Bye, guys.